Today we're looking at two Albuquerque-area housing conversations that generated a lot of buzz this last week. A lot of questions, sort of dramatic for us in the housing world, right?
Well, Tracy, I post stuff about the housing market in Albuquerque all the time on my Facebook page, and there was a story.
Okay, so Tego.
What, we're just starting just like that?
I know you always start with, welcome to
Albuquerque Real Estate Talk.
Albuquerque Real Estate Talk.
What episode are we? What is it? 593. Okay, there. Okay, go ahead.
So we're Tracy and Tego Venturi, Venturi Realty Group. We have a great team here in the Albuquerque metro area and Santa Fe. We just helped some folks in Santa Fe. It was great. Love to do that. But today we're looking at two Albuquerque area housing conversations that generated a lot of buzz this last week. A lot of questions, sort of dramatic for us in the housing world, right?
Well, Tracy, I post stuff about the housing market in Albuquerque all the time on my Facebook page, and there was a story. So let's just start there. And first off, if you want to get a hold of us, we're the Venturi Realty Group, Real Broker, 505-448-8888.
Okay, so the headline, Tego, was Corrales home price is up 44% in what, June?
Yeah, and that wasn't really the headline, but the gist of the story, if you read the story, it implied a couple different things. One, that home values in Corrales rose 44% in 1 year. Okay, first off, not true, and I'll explain that in a second. And then the other is that you can buy a house for $400,000 and put $100,000 into it and suddenly have a $1 million house. Also not true.
Well, not that we could say 100% that didn't ever happen, but that's not what's happening in our market.
That is not a common thing. Now, are there people that buy houses, fix them up, add value to them? Absolutely. But you don't double the value of a home. That's not how it works unless something very weird happened. But
I think the quote for that, Tego, was a Corrales. You could buy a $400,000 in Corrales, put 100, right? It was related to Corrales also.
Yeah, it was.
You could buy one in Corrales for $400,000, add a $100,000 remodel, and sell it for $1 million. Well, we know Corrales pretty well, and that hasn't happened. I'm sure.
No, it hasn't.
I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened. And there isn't even a $400,000 house that...
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's anything halfway decent for $400,000 in Corrales, it's, yeah.
But
okay.
They do come up.
So I pulled up on the screen here. So every quarter, the local association, Albuquerque Association of Realtors, or GAR, does a market stat update. And this comes from the MLS. And what it says is, okay, how much the median price of the homes that sold changed, in this case from quarter 2 25 to quarter 2 26. In Corrales, from quarter 2 25, it was $660,000 was the median sale price. And in quarter 2 2026, the median sale price was $950,000. That's a 44% increase in the median sale price, which is very different than home values.
It's of the houses that sold, and you get a little anomaly in there, and it skews the whole number.
And it was more than a little anomaly. This quarter, there were 33 closings versus last year. In the same quarter, there were 22 closings. And it's just a mix of the homes that sold. There were a lot of high-end homes that sold this year. I think there were multiple $2 million plus homes that sold in Corrales in the second quarter of 26. A bunch of $1 million plus homes, and so it just moved the median up. So people that don't understand basic statistics were confused, and unfortunately that happened with one of the Albuquerque TV stations when they did a story about this, and it kind of got it got confused. And anyway, so
it was dramatic Corrales story, and it was exciting, and it gave us. It gave us opportunity to go, wait, this is not...
It was dramatic in my bubble, because in my bubble, it's real estate people, it's people that follow me and look at the market, and people going, that story made no sense. That I'm sure consumers are totally confused about, what happened with values in Corrales.
Right. So Tego, pretty much every podcast we talk about the Zillow Home Price Index, which is the value of all homes, not the ones for sale, but of all homes. They've got a value on every house in America, right? So what's changed over the last year? Do you have that?
You just happened to cue me right up. I know I had it. I had already queued this up. So what we're looking at is a zip code chart of the greater Albuquerque area. We're looking at year over year home value change, not sale price change, but home value change based on Zillow's estimate, basically.
So if you're not online looking at this beautiful chart you just pulled up, it shows Corrales and it says it's 2.5%.
Yeah, so Corrales 87048. You can see the chart here. Back during the boom days of 2021, we were seeing some pretty good growth, 15%. But basically and it kind of mirrors the rest of the market. Since 2023, about 2023, the market has slowed down. We're still seeing year-over-year appreciation.
Just nice, low, steady growth, not 44%.
Yeah, but the latest read, which is the same with that, is June this year versus June last year, about 3% price appreciation overall for all the homes, not just what's sold. So there's your economics corner. Oh, wait, no, it isn't, because we're going to do more economics here in a second.
I'm sure you have more stats for us, right?
Yeah.
So what else is going on in the housing world right now?
Well, the other story that I put out this week, which got a lot of attention, and I'll pull this up. Let me come back here. So the National Association of Home Builders, or HBA, Home Builders Association, anyway, whatever they're, NHAB.
National Association of Home Builders.
Yes. They do a study each year, and they look at how much regulatory cost is in the build of every single home. So what they're, obviously they're a little biased, but they're saying that, okay, for all the homes that get built, how much of it is just paperwork and permits and taxes and all this kind of regulatory
Does
stuff.
that include streets and
I'll
sidewalks
show you.
and
No,
things?
No. Well, no. In this
Regulatory?
case, no. And in this case, basically what they're saying is it's $131,000, almost $132,000 on a typical single-family home in the United States. And I think they're basing that on a almost $500,000 house. So they're saying about 26% of the home cost is the estimate. Basically, what do they say here? Federal, state, and local regulatory expenses account for about 26% of that. And then here's the breakdown. So cost of applying for zoning, hard costs like fees, studies, stuff like that.
Engineered
we're not saying that
reports.
this stuff isn't needed. They're just pointing out it's like, you got to build this into the cost of a new home.
It's pointing out how hard it is to do an affordable house because there's so much besides just the sticks and the construction.
Which brings me right to my other topic, this chart. So I've got another chart. This one was prepared by a local home builder, and in what they broke it down a little bit different here, but it's looking at a $375,000 new home in the greater Albuquerque area, right? And I think the thing that is kind of interesting is the vertical construction. So that's basically just building the house is $160,000 of that $375,000. Everything else is, the site, the land. A lot right now, as you know, Tracy, for just a typical tract lot, 40 wide, 50 wide, is anywhere from $100,000 to $120,000 before you build anything. And then you've got, the taxes and fees and, the way this was broken down, it says government accounts for $63,000 of that $375,000 house that gets built. GRT is a big one. Gross receipts tax is unique to New Mexico. Every home in New Mexico that's built gets charged gross receipts tax on the total price of that home. That is unique to New Mexico. So that's one thing that does account for it's got to be figured into the cost of new construction. So, I posted something just saying, there's a reason it's hard to build, quote, air quote, affordable housing, because no matter how big the house is, no matter how cheap it is to build the walls or, some other construction, you still have a whole lot of fees.
Right.
2/3 of them have nothing to do with the construction.
Right. And all of those fees don't even tell us how long it takes to get all those permits and how much lead time it takes before you can break ground.
Well, and that's
Right.
true.
So
yeah.
the holding cost for a builder,
Yeah.
pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. No,
So-
for sure. So anyway, those were my two big viral posts this week.
Yeah.
Viral.
Crazy.
20 people looked at them on
Frenzy.
Facebook.
So, Tego, we have a lot of great homes on the market, several really nice open houses this weekend.
Yeah.
The website, abq.re/OH.
One of these weeks you're going to remember.
Well, I think I remembered when you weren't here last week, but
Okay.
abq.re/OH. Okay, so we have that phenomenal luxury home in Dietz Farm. You know, a lot of people go to the Los Ranchos Growers Market on Saturday morning, and it's like slow drive through there because people are parked everywhere and getting all that beautiful vegetables this time of year and arts and crafts a lot of times. So we're going to have the house in Dietz Farm open Saturday morning from 10 to 12 when everybody's already out and about and getting breakfast and going to the Growers Market. So that house is listed at $1,495,000. It's about just under 5,500 square feet. Just under an acre, beautiful grounds, beautiful pool. It's an adobe home, really special. So if you're interested in that one, it'll be open on Saturday. Of course, we'd be happy to schedule a private tour for you as well.
I just pulled up the video of this home online. Yeah, it's quite the hacienda estate type property in the North Valley. So
Right.
Yep.
Another one in Wantabo Hills, Volterra neighborhood will be open on Sunday. It's a really wonderful single story, 2,500-ish square feet with flex rooms. So it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 bedrooms, 3 to 4 or 5 bedrooms. It's a really nice single story, small backyard, and it backs to some open space trail in that Volterra neighborhood. Really nice one. And that'll be open on Sunday for a bit. So, get on our website and find it. Several others, and we have some really great properties that we represent. We're really honored to represent them.
And it's interesting because I know we have a variety of properties, in the pipeline coming on the market. We have one down in the Tingley Beach Zoo area coming, a small little bungalow, which is, going to be sub 300,000. And then, we've got some luxury homes. You've got one that you're working on in Corrales, a big estate type property in Corrales. So it's a
working
whole
on
variety.
2 right now in Corrales, one
Yeah.
up in Sandia Heights North, a whole variety.
Yeah.
So very exciting.
Yeah. So, if you're, in the market, as they say, reach out to us and we can help you, or at least take a look, see what we've got coming and see if there's anything that's a good fit for you.
Not to be the stat guy,
Okay.
but because I know that's your baby, but this past week, there's been 309 houses that came on the market, 260 closed. So those are ones that went under contract at some point in the last month or two or whatever.
About 45 days, yeah.
249 went pending sale. So 309 came on, 249 came off the market. The other number that's interesting is 79 came back on market. So for some reason, they were under contract, had an accepted offer, and they came back on market. And we have found sometimes that those ones are the ones where we can really get that house for you that you might have missed out on the first time when it comes back on market. So we're here to help you find a house or sell a house. But, those back on market, sometimes we are I don't know the word, but we're bulldogging for you. What's that word? If you're looking for a house, we're watching the market. We're going to make
bird dogging.
Bird dogging. There we go.
Right. We're out there. Bird dogging. He goes out and stirs up the birds and the quail from the field. Right.
Sorry, I knew that phrase, but it just wasn't coming
to me. It
to
wasn't coming. I get it. I get it.
But we're bird dogging for you. If you've got something you're looking for, we're talking. I'm working on something right now where it's not on the market, but just through word of mouth, I found out about it. So a lot of times there's something out there that we might know about that isn't public yet. So give us a call. Let us get to work for you, whether you're buying or selling. We'd be honored to do that.
Okay, Tracy, I've got a question. This came up. We take it for granted, I think, a lot of times, but which direction should a home in the Albuquerque area face?
You didn't warn me about this question. So, okay. So when we get people coming from out of area, relocation, out of state, things like that, we do talk about this with them. We try to give them some orientation. Any direction is fine as long as you know what you're getting into, right? So typically, seasonally, with where the sun is during the year in the southern hemisphere in the winter, the backyard facing south is perfect, right? Because in the summertime, the sun's in the northern hemisphere and you've got a shaded back portal or backyard by the house. So when you've got a backyard that faces south, you typically works best with the solar orientation. The other one is typically when the backyard faces east. So you might get a mountain view to the east, depending on if you're a lot that has a view.
Well, but it depends. If you're in Sandia Heights and your backyard faces the east, you might not have this huge view, but you might see the mountain, but you don't see the other view, the sunset view for
the
Mount
city.
Taylor. Yeah.
Well,
over
you
the
might
city
see
and
the
Mount Taylor.
sunset on the Watermelon Mountains, though. So generally, we prefer east and south facing backyards. But if you have west or north facing, you just have to plan for it. You need to plant trees or put a covered patio, put up a little pergola, something so you can enjoy the outdoors when it's 100 degrees out, like it has been.
Well, I think one of the things that's unique about the Albuquerque area, New Mexico in general, is we've got these big skies. We've got, big views kind of in all directions. Now, depending on where you're at, you're maybe not going to get views. Like where you and I live, Tracy, we're down in the valley. We don't really have views per se, big panoramic views, but we still get the sky. And so I think it kind of just depends. Now, I think one of the things that we find is like in areas on the west side, in Rio Rancho maybe, if you've got a house that's got a backyard that faces west, that's something that can actually be a bad thing, because if you don't have shade and you've got west facing backyard, it's going to get really hot in the summer times in the afternoons.
Yep,
right?
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, there's ways around that, but that's just something to consider.
Right.
Sometimes when we talk about home values and we say, home values are localized, I always joke and said, yeah, it's localized. It could be the difference from one side of the street versus the other.
100%. I think about the Loma Colorado neighborhood in Rio Rancho when all those lots were available. And I think one year I sold 14 houses in that neighborhood when they were building new and the first resale. But the one side of the street had a lot premium that ranged from 15 to 45,000, right? And the Del Webb community, Alegria, same thing. Muirhaven, same thing. Where one side of the street is significantly different when they're brand new, but on resale, the different side of the street in those same neighborhoods now today, 15 or 10 years later, they're still getting maybe 10,000 more, depending on the lot and the continued view. So for sure.
Yeah.
Can make a big difference.
Well, and I think the takeaway here is which way the home faces really depends on the location, depends on what's important to you. Do you want the sunsets? Do you want to see the Sandias? Do you want to see the west? Do you want to see the sunrise? Do you want to look to the north up to the Sangre de Cristos and the Jemez? It really depends.
So the other part, Tego, is that not everybody hangs out in their backyard. Not everybody is outdoorsy. So for some people, they don't care about the backyard, right? But it's still helpful to have maybe some big trees or something to help shade your house for energy efficiency, right? It's still wise, even if I'm not a big barbecuer or hanging out or gardener or whatever. And it's true, not everybody's outdoorsy.
Yeah. Okay, Tracy, I got another question for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. How quickly does a buyer recognizes they like a house? Can they figure out how much they like a house within 60 seconds of going in the house?
Good question. I know the answer.
I know you do.
So showing thousands of houses over 25 years, people have this list, right? They start out and they say, I really need a big backyard. I really need an open kitchen. I really need a kitchen island. I really need 4 or 5 bedrooms. And what happens is we walk into a house, first just walking up to the front door. We have already seen the street. Are there cars all over it? Are people parking on their lawn? Yes, no. People already have a feel of whether the neighborhood is right for them. But then you get to the house, and usually, Tego, I kid you not, probably within the first 10 or 20 seconds inside the door, people are saying, oh, I love this house. Oh my gosh, this is the house for me. And we haven't even seen it all yet. Or they're saying, oh, this won't work for me because blah, 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 it doesn't have. So you find out that list of the absolute must-haves often gets thrown out the window because of how the house feels when you walk into it. They walk in and say, oh, I really need a open kitchen to the living room, but this will work. It's okay. I can deal with this.
Because they love everything else.
They just get a feel for the house right away.
Yeah.
And then they say, I really wanted that extra garage, but this will work. And they compromise quickly. They get a feel.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation last week with somebody who's bought several houses with me, and they hadn't really ever recognized it. And I said, come on, you know this. Tell me, when we've walked into houses, you've been that person. And they're like, you're right. I do that. And I'm like,
well, I remember, long ago, early in my career, somebody said it's, the buyer starts doing their dance. They do the dance, right? They're in there
excited.
And they like, you can
feel the energy
You can
shift.
sense the energy that, if you're aware of yourself, you can sense the energy too, that you just feel it, that it just feels right.
Right.
And of course, the opposite is true too. You go in and go, this is not right. And it can be more than, it can be smells, it can be temperature, it could be the light, a whole bunch of different things is going to affect how you feel about that home when you go in it, for sure.
Yep, for sure.
No doubt.
I like that question.
That was a good question. Okay, one last thing.
It's kind of like we're doing the this or that on a different level. I didn't know that was on the list today. This is fun.
Another thing that came up, kind of a conversation on my Facebook group or my Facebook page was, I was talking about this thing about cost to build, right? I was talking about this idea of, what does it cost to build a new home right now?
Okay.
And there's been a lot of conversations about, okay, we need to get the cost to build a new house down. Well, if the cost of the new home, building a new home, were to drop, does that drive all the home prices down? And I thought it was a really interesting kind of like economics thought. It's like, well, the reality is prices are driven by whatever the market will bear, be it resale or be it new construction, right? And there's always going to be trade-offs.
Right.
And I find that, new construction generally is a little bit more money, when you're looking at it per square foot, but there's trade-offs. It might be further out of town, right? But the other trade-off with new construction is you're getting new. It's more efficient. You've got new stuff. You have no maintenance for a long time or no, repairs that need to be done.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to new that could justify the sale price, right? You probably won't have any major mechanical issues for 10 or 15 years, right? Roof, HVAC, all those types of things that are a little bit bigger dollar things. Energy efficiency, older houses versus newer houses, your utility bills over the life of when you own the home is probably going to be a lot better with new, just depending, because we've had Greenfield, New Mexico for a number of years now, probably more than 10 now. So depends.
At least that long, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about 08, 09 when I was on the New Mexico green panel. So yeah, so there's some definite benefits to new construction, but do you really think that home construction costs are going to drop enough to
Well, this is the reality.
create this need to have an answer to this question? No.
You're right. They're not. They're just not, because we're not going to get rid of any of the only thing I see happening is the state doing maybe some sort of moratorium on gross receipts tax for new construction, which would save $20,000, $30,000 per house. I don't see the state doing that. I see them maybe doing that at a selective price point for certain people that qualify, basically to help people get into homes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. This is kind of more of a thought exercise than is it really going to happen? Is new construction going to drop in prices? And I think the answer is probably not, I'm afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that's really going to help affordability is if interest rates come down, and we don't even want to go down that road because there's so many things, as most people understand that drive, the mortgage rates, and right now they're a little higher than they've been now for a little bit.
I think that it's sad that we're still saying that interest rates need to come down. I'm sorry, but historically, the interest rates in the sixes is a very, very good interest rate.
However,
so we talk about this too much.
No. I want to push back on this because, yes, historically they were, but home values were a lot less. So yes, people talk about in the 80s when interest rates were 18% or whatever, right? Well, that's fine, but it was it was an $80,000 house. It wasn't a 500.
Proportional to incomes and family net worth and things.
Proportional, it's still unaffordable. We are highest unaffordability ever in the United States. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Partly because of interest rates, but it's also just because values continue to go up. And again, that goes back to this whole idea of housing shortage, cost to build, all of these things we've been talking about. So there's no silver bullet, right? There's going to be a story coming out in the Albuquerque Journal, maybe by the time this drops, about this bill that came out of Washington related to housing. It was like 52 some different things in there. Most of them had to do with the financing side for affordability for certain groups. Very little that the federal government can do to help with construction costs and local zoning and all those other problems. So sorry, you got me off on my soapbox here.
That's okay. It's
I hear people saying, oh, if we just ban corporate owners, that'll fix housing. It's like, that won't do anything, especially in Albuquerque, because they're not even here. But
completely different than what I just said, but yeah.
My point is there's no silver bullet to fix the housing affordability thing. It's going to be a slow grind of slow home price appreciation and people's incomes rising, which of course that's another problem, and interest rates coming down before we get back to an affordability that's a little bit more normal.
Okay, well, I set you off and there we go.
Yep, that was my diatribe diatribe, that's not the right word. Anyway.
Okay, well, this is always fun. It
is always fun. We appreciate everybody. If you're still tuned in, thank you. We are the Venturi Realty Group, real broker here in Albuquerque, 505-448-8888. And all the July data is on our website now, updated at welcomehomeabq.com. All the sales data, all the numbers, all that good stuff if you like to look at that stuff. So
all right, till next time.
Take care.